Welcome back to Jersey Matters. I'm Larry Menti. Cuban Americans have a proud history in this state, but there's one New Jersey community that seems to attract more Cuban immigrants than anywhere else. Our Vanessa Tyler went to Elizabeth Township to find why that community is so attractive to those coming from Cuba.
Larry, the story is the heritage of many, a group of people leaving the past of one place in pursuit of a better future in another. About 50 years ago, it was the Cubans, and the place, Elizabeth, New Jersey. The impact of the Cuban experience in America started when they began arriving by the plane loads, a people leaving their country behind.
It was very different, and it was fearful. It really was very fearful times. Fearful if we stayed, because we feared that we would be in dissonance with the government, that we would be in disagreement, and that my father would be targeted because he was an outspoken man.
Josephine Hernandez was only 9 when she arrived, remembers it like it was yesterday. It's those stories of fear, resilience, assimilation from the people who lived it. Their voices are heard in a documentary project titled Cuban Voices, produced by the Snyder Academy of Elizabethtown, a cultural and education center based in Elizabeth.
They came for so many of the same reasons that people have come to the United States over many, many generations. They came because of political persecution. They wanted religious freedom. They were looking for economic opportunity. They were looking to make a better life for their children. They came here for freedom.
Their first stop was Miami, but seeking opportunity to make money moved thousands up north, landing in places like Elizabeth where there was factory work for those who did not speak English.
Elizabeth is a city of immigrants. It has been for its entire history. And the experience of Cuban Americans who came here in the 1960s and 1970s is a very significant story, because the Cuban Americans who came here were really in the vanguard of bringing other immigrants from Latin America to Elizabeth. Elizabeth today is a majority Hispanic city. And the Cuban Americans who came here really shaped the culture, the society, and the economy of Elizabeth for generations of other immigrants who came here to follow.
It wasn't easy. Life here with its harsh weather was hard.
No place like Cuba. No place like Cuba, because that was a paradise.
85-year-old Lourdes Zeke was one of 25 people featured in the project. She was in her late 20s when she came here. She left behind not only her paradise, but her upper middle class life, too.
I have, at that time, 4 children, 4 little children.
On this night, they viewed the documentary, talked more about their memories, and how they eventually made it in this new land.
When my father came, there were no Cubans here. So he was the first, didn't speak English, working at a factory, my mother alone with the 4 of us. But you know, as I said, they had the will, they had the tenacity, they had the faith, and they were just going to keep moving forward.
They also acknowledged this is not the story of immigrants today. They were lucky. They were welcomed.
I feel that immigrants now have a much harder time because it's a much more hostile environment, you know, politically, economically, spiritually, in every which way.
Hernandez also thinks color had a lot to do with it, too. Most were white Cubans. Many of the darker Cubans stayed behind, most fearing America's reputation against people of color. Those who fled Fidel Castro's regime first thought they would wait him out, then realized Castro wasn't going anywhere. Now Elizabeth would be their permanent home. So they began to shape this city with their own restaurants, culture, and businesses like Leonardo's jewelry store, the family business their father bought on a handshake, leaving the factory work behind.
Which we are still running. We have 2 stores. In fact, we just closed the Elizabeth store a year ago, so we have a store in Red Bank and one in Metuchen that continues my father's legacy.
The legacy of a people in the true spirit of America. In Elizabeth, I'm Vanessa Tyler for Jersey Matters.
All right, thank you very much, Vanessa. When we come right back, it's Nancy Pelosi, the sequel. I'll tell you why the president wants her as Speaker of the House in my commentary coming up next.